everyone. Today we will be talking about search engine optimization and content marketing fundamentals and how they work together well. I'm Vasil Azarov, online events producer at Business to Community. I'm also CEO at Startup Socials and the founder of the Growth Marketing Conference, Silicon Valley's largest growth marketing event. I'm excited to be your moderator today. Before we get started, a few housekeeping reminders. This presentation is being recorded and it will be available on demand within 48 hours. If you would like to submit questions for our presenter, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. You can type them into the chat box located in the lower corner of your screen. And I wanted to mention that this webinar is brought to you by our partner, Contently. They specialize in content that works. They help brands to do effective content marketing from ideation to optimization and everything in between. And with that, I'm very excited to introduce Adam here. Adam Blake is the Senior Marketing Operations Manager at Contently. And what he does there, he oversees lead generation and all inbound marketing initiatives to meet companies' rapidly growing revenue goals. Adam brings a data-driven approach in digital marketing with experience in search marketing for Fortune 500 brands. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Adam. Adam, please take it away.
Great. Thanks, Vasil. I appreciate the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Adam Blake. I'm the Senior Marketing Operations Manager here at Contently. And when we created this registration page and put up the photo, one of our members of our sales team decided to get creative with Photoshop, so I thought that was pretty funny going in there. So anyway, today I want to talk about SEO and how we're using it to increase our visibility here at Contently. As Vasil mentioned, Contently is a content marketing technology company, and we are helping brands that want to publish, and we work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies in optimizing and improving their content marketing efforts. So first I want to start off by talking about Google's mission. So Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So there are millions of pieces of content on the internet, and Google's algorithm and their ultimate goal is to match you in your search with pieces of content that will educate you, inspire you, entertain you, and ultimately match with exactly what you're looking for. So if I were to do a quick search for a T-shirt cannon, and I type it into the search engine at the very top bar, the top pieces of content are going to be the most valuable pieces that I'm going to be looking for. And Google creates this algorithm that will best match me with what I'm searching for. So I wanted to talk about some of the barriers to entry and why it's a little bit difficult to understand SEO, and provide you with a little bit more leverage so it's easier to get into. So I think one thing that people struggle with is that there's two completely different sides to SEO, and I kind of look at it as left brain and right brain. So your left brain is a little bit more technical, it's data-driven, there's a little bit more reporting involved, and I think that a lot of times on the SEO team, you're working with a developer to get some of these things done. So updating your XML sitemap or looking at URL structure or 404 errors, a lot of things that the modern marketer wouldn't understand. And to me, I think this is a little bit intimidating because a lot of marketers aren't developers by trade, and it can be a little bit intimidating to get started with this. And for me, myself, I think this is one of the easier things to learn. I think a lot of this is really easy to pick up over time. There's a lot of content out there on doing these specific SEO things, and I think it gets easier, and especially if you have a developer available to pick their brain, I think that this is stuff that can easily get accomplished just with a little bit of work. And on the other side, I think it's there's a lot of SEO is around creating really valuable content. Going back to Google's mission statement, their number one goal is to match a user with the best content available. So creating content that is really high value is really important. And when I say high value, I mean it's shareable. You're going to engage with it. You might link back to it. You might comment if it has a commenting feature. Has a great user experience, so it's mobile friendly. It's easy to see on whatever device you're looking at. Another barrier to entry, to me, it feels like that you're not going to initially see the fruits of your labor. So SEO is a long game. When you're making optimizations and you're making tweaks, you might not see those optimizations take effect to 6 to even 12 months later. And out of all the marketing initiatives that you have, I call SEO the Oregon Trail of marketing initiatives. So I wanted to kind of educate you a little bit about some of the common terms that you need to know going through this presentation. It'll make your life a little bit easier when you're starting to do your SEO optimization. So first off, your SERP. SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. And going back to the T-shirt Canon search, it's the search results that you see on Google or Bing or whatever search engine that you decide to use. PageRank is actually the position where that particular piece of content goes. So on your normal SERP, you're going to have 10 pieces of content, not including your paid. The first position is the very top of the page. It's the first article or video listing. Meta tags are things that tell Google what that piece of content is about. So if you make an article, you're going to have meta keywords and meta descriptions, and these are basically things that kind of inform Google or Bing what that piece of content's about. So typically meta keywords have been proven that they're not as impactful as they once were. So you're going to typically have 3 to 4 keywords in your meta keywords. And as for your meta description, you typically want to have 150 to 160 characters or less, and you want an original piece for that meta description. You want to differentiate. Next is your title tag. So this is another description that tells Google or Bing what that piece of content is about. And if you hover in your browser over a tab at the top, you'll be able to see what that page's title tag is. Typically you want 50 to 60 characters, and I think best practice is to use a very short description, a dash, and then your brand name. And obviously there are times when you're not going to use that format, but commonly that is the best way to create your title tag. The next term that you might hear quite frequently is black hat SEO, and to me these are like tactics that you're trying to do to beat the system. So a long time ago you used to be able to stuff keywords on a page or create new websites to link back, and this is to ultimately to improve that page's ranking on the SERP. And we're finding that Google's and Bing are getting smarter. Their algorithms are getting more complex, and they're beating black hat SEO tactics. And if, as a marketer, it's not a long-term strategy for your SEO initiatives. Lastly, you have a spider. A spider is basically a bot that crawls the internet, and it's looking for valuable pieces of content. It's understanding what that content is. It's looking at your meta tags, your meta descriptions, and ultimately that's what will be used to rank that particular piece of content. So I wanted to talk about kind of the keys to content success. Typically you want to start with defining goals, just like any marketing initiative, and many times your SEO goals will align with your business goals. So if you're a retail brand and you want to improve your brand awareness, you might have an SEO goal to overall increase your traffic. If you're a retailer, if you want to sell more products, you could say improve your viewability and traffic to specific e-commerce pages. You might want to do reputation management, and you want to show your credibility within the industry. So typically you want to start with defining goals. I linked to a page that Rand Fishkin wrote on Moz that really goes into detail on choosing goals and how to optimize your SEO strategy for those different goals, and I think it's great. The next thing you do, I always want to know where you stand. So I like to do a quick audit of where your company is. You could do keyword rankings. I want to start by doing some page load time and see how fast things are loading. I want to look at technical errors. So one tool that I really, really like is it's called Screaming Frog. And it's a free tool that you can use, and you can basically just type in your domain, and it'll tell you all the list of meta descriptions that could be too long or too short. It'll look for 404 errors that you can download. It's a really, really great tool, and I highly recommend looking into that. The next thing you do after you do your audit and you have your goals is looking at is creating a game plan. How can you work with different teams depending on how your org structure is working to make sure that you're successful, that you're meeting these goals. So, if you have a content team and you have a development team and you're on the SEO team, how do you make a consistent process to make sure that you're working towards those goals? Last thing I think, and I see some of the questions coming in. I'll make sure that I repeat these towards the end in the Q&A. The last thing I think is you want to track the performance of what you're doing. So there's a lot of tools that are meant for different shapes and sizes of businesses. There's Searchlight Conductor and BrightEdge, and Moz has their own tools, SEMrush, SpyFu. There's all kinds of different tools that you can invest in. I think that you really need to start with your goals and your audit and making a game plan before you invest in any technology. So here at Contently, there is a process for how we're working towards better SEO. So I think one of the first thing is just looking at and defining a goal. And one of our main goals is to improve our audience and our traffic to Contently's blog. We know that if we're consistently building our thought leadership and getting more people to that, and making sure that the content that we're providing is valuable, that people are going to consistently come back, that will ultimately help our business grow. Our content is a huge hub for our marketing efforts, and we want to make sure that we're not only credible in the industry, but that people will come back and refer to us for their content marketing needs. The next thing that we really did was make a targeted keyword list, and I'll go through that after this. Providing a keyword list that your content team can use, and your PR team can use, and your social team is really important, because you want to make sure that everyone's kind of using the same language in their content, because that will ultimately better improve your SEO. So the next thing is making sure that your content team actually uses those lists. So when they're making articles and you have to choose between two different types of terms, that you're choosing the right word or phrase that is better for your business. Then the last thing is just making sure that everyone has access to the same reporting and consistent reporting, so you can tell if you're improving, if you're not improving, and grabbing any insights relatively easy. So creating a keyword list, I think a lot of people can do it different ways. This is how I did it, and it might not be the best way, but I think it worked for us, and it's been valuable so far. So the first thing I did is I went around and looked for different ways to pull in searches and phrases about Contently. So I looked at our paid search account and looked at what keywords were converting well. I looked at in Google Webmaster Tools, which I think is a huge undervalued tool that Google provides. They do have ranking reports in there. They have the keywords that are common on your website. And then lastly, I used different competitor research tools to see what our competitors were trying to rank for. And I used Google AdWords tool to make different variations of these and made one giant list. The next thing I did is I asked, after I boiled that list down, I asked our senior leadership what they thought was relevant. So if you had to pick 5 or 6 terms that you think are important to this business, what would they be? I think having a relevance back to your business is incredibly important when you're making a keyword list. The last thing I did is after I got what they thought was important, I pulled competition for that keyword and search volume data to kind of make a ranking system. So this is kind of the structure that I used. So I broke down the keywords into kind of subgroups that were similar, and I said, okay, well, say if they had the same search volume and the same number of competitors trying to rank for that keyword, what would you prefer? And this is kind of an arbitrary scoring system. And I went around to the most senior editors and chiefs and C-level people and said, what would you care to rank for? So I had them go through and just put an X next to keywords that they thought were really important and an asterisk next to things that they also thought might be important as well. So after I made this scoring system, I used this formula, and I put the link here at the bottom. It's called Keyword Efficiency Index. And again, this might not be the best way of sorting your keywords, but I think it gave us a really, really good starting point. So what I did was I looked at the keywords and I looked at the what our senior leadership thought was important, and then I matched it up with search volume and the competitor data for that particular keyword. I made a ranking system. So at the end of the day, if you're talking about one set of keywords, so say like cars, we know that if you're talking about cars, this is the keyword that you actually want to use. You want to say automobiles, for instance. So it's important to have just a manageable list to look at to say, as a business, we want to rank for these particular keywords, and this is what's important to us. So our content team has it, everyone has it to use and to reference over time. So say if you haven't gone through this yet, and you're a content marketer and your team hasn't gone through this different exercise, what should you do to look at what's important? And one quick thing that you could do is just use Google Trends. Google Trends is an excellent tool that will look at what people are searching for over time. So you can basically type in different search phrases or keywords and see what people are using. So say, for instance, you wanted to talk about politics, and you weren't sure if you should use Republican Party, GOP, or Grand Old Party. And this matters because, as you can tell, you want to use GOP in this particular instance because that's what people are searching for. People aren't searching for Grand Old Party or Republican Party. So just looking from a sheer search volume perspective, this is what I would do to kind of do a quick search and just a quick spot check. And why is this important? So if you look at an example of a piece that Contently did, we knew that content predictions was a really important word for us to rank for. We knew that if someone was searching for this, they had a tendency to be a more qualified user. So when you're looking and you're talking about content predictions, we try to think about which way that you want to use which words that you want to use this based off of the keyword list that we created. So you're making a article about it. If you notice in the URL, in the headline, and in the alt text, content predictions is mentioned. And having that consistency ranking for that particular keyword is really important. You want to align all the different assets to make sure that you are going to rank for that particular keyword. And if you go back, when I originally pulled this, we were in the 3rd position for something that has 99, almost 100 million pieces of content about it. All right. So I wanted to go through and do a crawl, walk, run strategy for SEO. So if you're crawling and you're just getting started, that's all right. I think you just need to start with what we talked about and just looking at what type of goal you want to complete. If you had, if you have a digital presence, what is it used for? And then use that to create your SEO strategy around it. I think doing a simple audit by using tools like Screaming Frog and Google Webmaster Tools, or if you want to pay for a tool to do a kind of health check, I think it's really important. There's a lot of content out there that'll kind of give you a list of things that you should be looking at when you're creating an SEO audit. The next thing I want to do is make a keyword list of things that I think would be relatively important. I think when you get those 3 things accomplished, you're crawling. You're heading in the right direction. This is all aside from making sure that you're using this into your content. So when you're walking, I think there are some important steps. So I think creating a weekly or monthly performance check to see how you're doing is really important. Again, there's a lot of tools out there that will help kind of give you your search engine rankings. The next thing I think is making sure that you have a really solid process to work with your content PR and development team. So you're all on the same page, you're using very similar lingo, and you're all using SEO-friendly tactics to make sure that you have the optimum visibility. The last thing I think is when you're really running and you're really running on all cylinders, I think it's looking at how you're managing your entire search presence. So depending on whether it's a paid advertising or Organic, you're kind of balancing both. Say you're trying to rank for something that's incredibly competitive, like content marketing, for example. It's an incredibly competitive term. Well, if you can't organically rank there, a lot of companies will pay to do an advertisement there. So they'll use Google AdWords to rank in the top positions for that. So balancing your paid and organic, I think, is very strategic, and it's something that you'd be doing if you're running a really enterprise-level SEO program. I think monitoring your visibility by different devices or on a local or a national standpoint to look and see how via mobile you're ranking here versus somewhere else. I think a lot of companies are really starting to create different strategies to look at how to rank better in those different areas. And lastly, I think just making sure that you are providing consistent SEO insights in lockstep with your editorial team. So you're looking at trends in the industry, and you're providing those trends to the editorial team so that they can fold those insights into their editorial calendar. So that's all I have on my end. I know that there were some questions that I'm seeing coming in, so I'd be happy to answer anything that you have for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. It was very quick and actionable presentation. That's what we like. And in case someone would like to reach out to you, that's the question that we always ask, what would be the best way? Would it be your email or Twitter or blog?
Sure. You're more than welcome to reach out to me at ablake@contently.com, or you can reach out to us on Twitter at @contently.
Okay, great. And then also a reminder for everyone that this presentation was recorded, and if you would like to review it at any point, we'll be sending a follow-up email within 24 hours so you can get access to the recording. And if you would like to, for all of us, for all of you who are live right now, joining us live on this webinar, if you'd like to ask a question, type it into the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So we got a good list of questions to get us started with, Adam. Actually, I found it very interesting, and somebody else also had a question about it. When you broke it down on search engine optimization on left brain versus right brain, and let's say someone who is just starting out altogether with both search engine optimization and content marketing, what would be the priorities? Do you focus on left brain on technical stuff, or right brain more creative stuff?
So I think if it was me, and I'm not just saying this because I work at a content marketing company, I think content marketing is something that I would focus on first. I think that with all the SEO optimizations that you make in the world, if it was completely technically sound and it was a crappy piece of content, it's still not going to perform well. You can have a really good piece of content that may not be as SEO friendly as it should be, and it still could rank pretty well. If you don't have a unique meta description, or maybe you don't have proper headlines, or you don't put in an alt tag in your image, like these are all kind of like technical things that if it's still a really good piece of content, I think it still has the potential to rank much better as opposed to the other way around. So I think content should be the priority, and making sure that you're really looking to just build valuable, engaging pieces.
Do you think that content creators should have at least a basic knowledge of search engine optimization when they have that content in mind, or should you just let them be as creative as they can, and then when they finish their piece, you just give it to somebody who is very knowledgeable in search engine optimization that can optimize it?
That's a good question. I think you need to have kind of an SEO process in place before you start creating. I think a lot of old school way of thinking is that you create a piece of content, then you hand it to the SEO person, you say, okay, go ahead and optimize it. And it doesn't really work that way. You want to, I think, I made a prediction around 6 or 7 months ago that sooner or later I think the content team and the SEO team are going to merge. I think more and more content marketers are getting more savvy with SEO. And, for us, I think one of the most important things at Contently is making sure that everyone on our content marketing team is savvy with SEO. So they understand, the basics on how to do all the elements that we've talked about. They're armed with a keyword list, and they know how to go through the right steps to figure out how they should structure it. You should go in when you're writing a piece of content in mind to say, all right, if someone's searching for about this topic, how would they phrase it, and making sure that that's something in mind. I think at the end of the day, you want to make something that is as creative and engaging as possible, but you want to do it having kind of an SEO process before you even create it.
It definitely makes sense. And yeah, here's the great question that fits right in from Dinesh. You mentioned 3 roles: content team, developers, and SEO team. What would be the specific skill sets for each member or each team, for all of this team?
Sure. So I think in traditional companies, there's 3 separate teams. So you have a content team that's just pumping out content. You have developers that are managing your website and doing your conversion rate optimization, all those good things. Then you have your SEO team that's looking at your visibility of your search. I think eventually, like I mentioned, that I think SEO and content will merge into the same role. As of right now, I think SEO is kind of in its own team, and right now they're focusing on visibility. They're looking at where their organic ranking is coming from and providing insights to content. They're typically also looking at everything else in the business as it relates to paid search and some of the advertising that they're doing. User experiences typically sometimes falls under SEO. And then developers, these are the people that are managing your website. So they're looking at, to me, one thing that's really important is that we're looking at 404 errors. I think that making sure that you're limiting the 404 errors, making sure that your site is loading as fast as possible, and just making sure that there's a clean UX. And if you can clean it up and make it easier for people to read and consume content, those should be kind of the ultimate goals of each team. And content should just only be focused on just making really, really engaging content that is relevant to the business and just something that people would care to read.
Great. So would you agree that, as you mentioned your prediction that SEO teams will merge with content teams, and then also there would be developers there. So would you agree that larger companies that have a content marketing department, they should be hiring developers specifically with the goal that they will be joining that team and looking at some specific skill sets that these developers have to make sure that they're right fit for the team. And same goes with both search engine optimization expert and content production teams.
I think developers are always going to be in their own bucket.
Okay.
I think the ultimate SEO person for me is someone that can write really well and take the insights that they know and then apply them to creating content on the site. I think over time, search engines will make it easier that you don't have to know all these technical aspects, and that a simple marketer that's just a really solid writer will be able to do SEO if you say without needing a very serious technical background.
Gotcha. So speaking of predictions overall, do you have any other ones, any good ones on how search engine optimization is changing in addition to content merging with a search engine optimization team? Any other big ones for 2017, let's say?
Sure. I think what's really interesting that I'm looking at is that you're looking how publishers are publishing their content. Some publishers are publishing straight to social media. There's companies that they're pushing all their content straight to Facebook. I think that there's always going to be changes in the vehicle that people are publishing, and I'm always curious to see how that's going to affect organic traffic, and if that's going to change things. You look at Medium or you looked at LinkedIn. How do all these different things kind of play into the role of people consuming content on areas other than your own traditional website? I'm also looking at mobile, and mobile has taken huge steps, and obviously it's a device where people are consistently consuming content. So I'm wondering what advancements in mobile optimized content, where that will go. I also, like I said, I think search engines are getting smarter and smarter on just matching relevant content for the user. So I just think I'm excited to see how this continues to evolve and make it easier for people to rank content that's really great, and you don't have to even go to the second page of Google anymore because within the top 3 sites you're going to get to the answer or the question that you're looking for.
Great. And in terms of, you mentioned Medium and LinkedIn, have you guys seen lots of success with it, or maybe some of your clients did? I'm just curious because I know that I've been getting that question quite frequently lately, and I wanted to share with our audience if they should be investing in publishing on these platforms.
That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that. I haven't, ourselves, we don't publish to Medium all the time. I think, very similar to kind of the strategy around syndicating your content. You want to publish content in other audiences. So if more and more people are, reading content in those different channels, you might not necessarily see the organic traffic to it, but if they're already in that arena, then you might get some referral traffic back to your website. So it's a really good question. I'll have to keep looking into that.
Sounds good. Maybe we'll cover it in one of the follow-up webinars. I know that we have quite a few scheduled in the next couple of months, so stay tuned for that. We briefly talked about search engine optimizations and content marketing tools, and I would like to add them here to the chat box for everyone. So if you can just talk a little bit about some of your 5 favorite tools that you use and why do you like them? Why do you think they save time and provide value? That would be great.
Sure. Honestly, I think the first one, as I mentioned a couple times, is Screaming Frog. It's basically it's a free tool that you can download, and it'll give you really good insight as to all the things going on with your website. The second, I think right now we're using Moz as a tool for our search engine rankings, but there are a lot of tools depending on where you are. I've used Searchlight Conductor in the past. That was one of my favorites. I know that there's Bright Edge, and it's very similar. Those are very enterprise level tools that will give you very granular data. But if you're just starting out, it might not be all that necessary to you. For a technical side, our developer really likes Raven Tool. It's something that he's really comfortable with, and it gives him daily updates on new issues or things going on. If there's a red flag, it's something that he likes looking into. Again, these are just things that I have personal preference and that I've used in the past. I've used SpyFu in the past. So if you're trying to look at competitor data, you can use SpyFu. SEMrush is a very similar tool, and it's relative. It's not exact data, but it's something that will give you really good kind of competitive insights. The last thing is I've used SimilarWeb. That gives you really good kind of overall marketing insights and competitor data. That's another one I like as well. So honestly, there's a ton of different SEO tools in there. If you've seen Scott Brinker's kind of technology landscape, SEO is a huge bucket, and there's a lot of tools that cater to different sizes of companies and for different aspects of what type of SEO goal that you have. Awesome.
So we got a good list here. On search engine optimization side, I personally love SimilarWeb as well. So they actually attended quite a few of our events in the past. So let's take a few more questions from the audience before we wrap up. Here's a very specific one. Thank you for the presentation. We have defined our keyword list in which we have some long tail keywords as well. Are long tail keywords important while I'm trying to build links, or is it enough when I'm using them in our own content, blog and different landing pages?
I think it's a really good question because the keyword efficiency index, when I mentioned that it's not the end all be all, there's something to be said for long tail keywords. I think those people that are using long tail, meaning they're longer search queries. It's not usually 1 or 2 word. It's usually a little bit longer. I think long tail keywords are usually much more qualified people. So I definitely think it's something I would look at. I'd look at Google AdWords and test it there. If you're looking and you're doing conversion data and you can see that, hey, if someone used this particular keyword to get back to your site, then it's something that maybe is worth creating content for and trying to rank for well. I think it's really important to also factor in long-tail keyword. Even though it's not going to have the same number of search volume or any search volume, if you rank for it and that person that will eventually go through this is really qualified, then it's definitely something worth ranking for.
And I think one of the things that we actually recently discovered, we started to pay more attention to Google Search Console, and it gives you some of the interesting keywords over there and some of them that on your website that get lots of impressions, but in many cases they don't get too many clicks. So it was interesting that when we started to create more content on our website, just based on these recommendations, and I can also send everyone a link to a webinar where we cover it in details, then it seems that our ranking went up and we start ranking more on these keywords specifically. Do you, Adam, use Search Console as your tool stack at all?
I don't. I think generally for organic, we're using mods. For paid search, we're using honestly just Google AdWords. We're not using any type of bid optimization platforms. And we have a strategy team here at Contently, so we do have a couple more tools at our disposal that we're using for just general rankings. I think honestly you can get a little bit overwhelmed by having too many technology pieces, so I always recommend just kind of keeping it simple, having a go-to piece that you can get the majority of your information from, especially if you're trying to involve your content team, really involved in your SEO process. You don't want to overwhelm them with too many pieces of technology. Just try to keep it simple.
Yeah, as long as it works as one well-oiled machine, so it's good. I definitely agree on that. So here's a good question from Renee. When creating a content, does company have to stick to only one voice style across all contributors?
No, I think it's important to have different styles and different formats of your content, and I think there's something to be said for kind of creating a lot of different variety of content. I think that's really just important for your content strategy in general. I think what would be important on is to focus on what do you want to rank for, what would ultimately help your business, and if you can fold that into your content strategy, don't let it define your content strategy. I think there's always going to be a compromise between talking about content that people care about and what they want to read versus what you want to rank for. So I think finding that balance is really important, and there's no really one solution for it.
Great. So we have one from Jennifer, but I'm going to expand on it. Is there any resource specifically on becoming an efficient writer, or maybe you would like to, I'm sure that Contently blog would be a good resource for it, but if there is anything else that comes specifically to mind, Adam, for you to become a better writer overall, any
Sure.
resources that you recommend?
Yeah, so we actually have our own platform, our own website that's dedicated to freelance writers. It's called The Freelancer. So if you go to contently.net, that's a great resource for kind of writing tips. I read a lot of blogs, and I think it's always really important to kind of consistently keep reading. So I think HubSpot has a great blog, as does Moz, and those are two places I go to a lot. I think Content Marketing Institute is phenomenal, and I love the content that they're producing. But yeah, I think starting with even just our blog and going to those few, and then just continually keep reading and looking for recommendations on other places. If Jennifer, you want to reach out to me, I can also find what our internal writers are using, and we can send that out as well. Places that
Awesome.
they go and places that they visit.
So let's wrap it up with some one last actionable tip, So usually what I ask at the end of the webinars for presenters to either share something that is really working right now and moving the needle for you guys when either comes to content marketing or search engine optimization, or one biggest takeaway that you would like for everyone to leave after watching this webinar and start implementing it tomorrow. So I'll let you choose. Either you want to share maybe a growth hack or one biggest takeaway before we wrap up.
Okay. Sure. So I think the biggest takeaway from this presentation is that you shouldn't feel like it's overwhelming. I think this is like a lot of this stuff is easy to learn. And there's a lot of content out there. You know, even if you start subscribing to Moz or you know, some of the SEO specific websites, they produce really great content on learning how to do this. So if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me. The biggest thing that we're focusing on right now is not only just trying to rank for different keywords and terms that will help our business, but also just how do we optimize content that we already have. So, you know, after you publish something and it started ranking really well, and then after a period of time, it's now on the third or fourth or fifth page. Google looks at relevance as, you know, and freshness of the content as a ranking factor. So right now we're looking at how can we repurpose old content so we can have it rank better again. There's a little bit of content out there that I've seen that, you know, if you give it kind of a facelift and republish it, you don't have to start from scratch. You can just update something that's still a relevant topic. So that's something that we're kind of playing around with and toying with to see how we can, you know, get our rankings back up on some of our older pieces that are over a year old. So it's something I would kind of keep in mind so you don't have to keep creating new content. Sometimes you can just repurpose older content and just refresh it if it's a little bit older and needs a touch-up.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Adam. Really enjoyed our webinar and conversation today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this webinar. I encourage you to check out all of the resources here that we provided, and we will be sending a recording in 48 hours. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.
Great, thanks.